Hello, hello, hello. This is Warren Redlick. I think we're live. I hope you all can hear me. Want to thank the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden and all my Patreon supporters for helping this channel grow. Please support the channel on Patreon. There's a link in the description below. We're going to talk about Starship today. A lot of Starship stuff happening. We'll do a brief Patreon Q&A. We'll talk about Tesla. We'll talk about Beyond. If you're watching this right now, you can see this yellow box. And if you want to skip ahead to the topic you're interested, you could just scroll through the video to find the yellow box where it is. Most of the video will be the Q&A at the end. That's how it seems to work. Anyway, we're going to start by talking about Starship, and I have to cheat and use my eyeglasses. Almost broke them today. That was fun. Starship, this is super heavy. I was totally, this is really exciting. People think of me as like a Tesla YouTuber and a Tesla fanboy. I'm an Elon fanboy, and my excitement really started with SpaceX, with landing orbital rocket boosters. Well, this is the biggest orbital rocket booster ever. 29 engines, you can see at the bottom. I got a bunch more images here, but this is it being lowered down onto the launch tower. And you can see just how monstrous this thing is. Just absolutely amazing. I'm loving this. And you can see here it is coming down to the launch tower. 29 engines. I think there's 9 in the inner circle, and they gimbal, which means they can change direction. The ones around the outer ring are fixed. Really, really cool. I'm having a lot of fun. This is Starship fully stacked. I think fully stacked should be a thing. Fully stacked. I don't know. It's probably got a sexual connotation or something. I don't know, but I love it. Here's another picture of it. I watched this nearly live. I was a little late to the party, but I was watching the live stream while it was still live on NASA Spaceflight. I recommend NASA Spaceflight's channel for watching this stuff live. Everyday Astronaut has some good coverage too. We're going to talk about Everyday Astronaut in a minute, but just the size of this thing, how amazing this is. There's a whole bunch of other images. If you follow Elon on Twitter, you just follow this on Twitter, and lots of pictures of great stuff. Really exciting. Boca Chica Gal had some great images. Jack Byer had some great images and video. All kinds of great things going on. Specific detail about Starship. Elon was asked about, or maybe he saw something about the potential for Starship to carry payloads in orbit. Up at the top here, he talks about orbital payload with full reusability, 150 tons. He talked about potential missions where it'd be launched as expendable, and then the payload would be 250 tons. And Omar Kazi here asks, why does expendability increase the payload so much? Higher structural margins overall. Elon goes into some detail here. You don't need the same degree of structural integrity if it's not going to be reused. So there's less mass in the structure of the ship. You don't need grid fins for aero control because it's not going to be coming back down on the booster. You need less fuel for boost back and landing propellant. Or you don't need tanks for boost back and landing propellant because you're going to ditch the super heavy booster in the ocean. You don't need to worry about protecting the engines from entry load. So again, that's less mass. The whole point is there's a lot less mass that you need on the super heavy booster and on the Starship, and that allows you to put more mass in the payload. And or maybe it allows you to put more fuel in and more mass at the same time, both, to be able to carry more payload into low Earth orbit or to more distant orbits. And Elon at the bottom talks about how it's a really, really hard problem to make a fully reusable rocket, orbital rocket. Must be rapidly and completely reusable like an airplane. And efficiencies of scale are why Starship is so large. They're doing it on a very large size, and that allows them to be more efficient in what they do. And they're making a ridiculous number of these. MK10PW1000 asks, two of them side by side would be fully stacked. I like that. When will they launch the Starship? So the orbital launch, this is a question I actually have as well, and I want to talk about that for a second. I'm planning to go to Texas for the launch. I don't have my plans solid yet. If you're on Clubhouse, I'm going to be doing a Clubhouse room in the Tesla Universe group Tuesday night, I think, talking about the potential travel plans. Basically, I'm going to do something like rent a house for a month and invite people to crash and, have them pay something so that I can reduce my cost of renting a house for a month. But I'm going to go down, shoot a bunch of videos, shoot videos from there. The videos will be more challenging because I'm shooting this on my high-end video editing PC, and I'm going to have to go with my laptop for the purposes of this, and that will be challenging. I'm not sure how well that's going to work out. but I'm going to do some videos from near Starbase. I have some plans, some rough ideas. We'll see how it goes. I'm kind of excited about this, but we'll see. It's a little bit of an adventure. I like adventure. So just a little bit more about what's going on. If you didn't see it, Everyday Astronaut Tim Dodd did 2 videos so far. I don't know if there's a third one coming or not, where he interviewed Elon during Elon giving him a tour of the Starbase factory. They're walking around the Starbase. Elon's showing them different things. Really, really cool stuff. I've watched both of them. They're great. Really, what's great about it is Tim Dodd just lets Elon talk a lot. And there's other moments where Elon's dog is there and, like lots of cute little things. But Elon talking a lot about what they're doing, and I very highly recommend it. I'm probably going to watch them both again because it's so good. So, I don't want to ship the PC. I want to travel light, travel lean, live lean, network, meet people, hang out. A lot. The thing with the launch is we don't know when it's going to happen. So the biggest challenge I have is, well, when do I start the month? Because I don't want to start it too late and miss the launch. I don't want to start it too early and miss the launch on the other side. I don't really mind if I'm there for 3 weeks and then the launch happens, or it happens the first week. Either way, I just don't want to, rent a house for a month and then have it not happen in that month. That would be frustrating. So that should be fun, and then of course there's always the chance that something really bad goes wrong. So ideally you want to time it so that the beginning of the month is really close to when the first attempt to launch will be, figuring it's going to fail 2 or 3 times before it actually launches, and that could take a couple weeks. And there's all these SpaceX fans and other people who are videoing from the area. I really would like to meet Tim. I met Tim Dodd once, but I'd love to meet Tim Dodd again. Mary from Boca Chica gal, Jack Beyer, the NASA space flight people. There's all these people around who are involved in this, and I would love the chance. I got to go to the Plaid event and meet a lot of Tesla people. Now I get to meet a bunch of SpaceX the SpaceX fan group. So that'll be fun. Anyway, that's the fun story there. And then just really quick, Elon tweeted about this video. He replied to this video. This is a video showing, quote, Mechazilla, that the tower is going to catch the booster. So here's this video. It's not very long. And you can see the booster is coming down and the arms of the tower reach out and catch it by the grid fins. Those grid fins are sticking out. And Elon said this was pretty close to accurate. And then from there, it would be able to put the Super Heavy down on the launch tower again. So yeah, thanks to, thanks to, who did the video? Let's just give them credit. X Space and Small Stars for that video. Really cool video. But look again, Elon says very close to real. Arms are able to move during descent to match exact booster position. So catch point is off to the side in case catch fails. You don't want to hit the launch mount. And then the booster is transferred back to launch mount for next flight, and it's designed to have 1 hour turnaround. Really, it's like crazy that they're doing this, but they're doing it. And I learned in the Everyday Astronaut video, at least the current plan is that the vehicle that we saw stacked, this one, Starship SN20 and Super Heavy Booster 4, I thought they were going to try to catch this booster on this orbital launch, and Elon said that's not currently the plan. Currently, the plan is the booster will try to do a soft water landing in the Gulf of Mexico, not far from Starbase, and the Starship will go orbital and ditch and try to do a soft landing near Hawaii. I think it's about 60 miles north of the Hawaiian island of Kauai. So that's the plan. Now, at first I thought that's crazy. Why would you throw away 29 Raptors on the booster? But this is Raptor 1.0. And actually, that's, if you watch the Everyday Astronaut, I have a tweet where I showed it, but if you watch the Everyday Astronaut video, there's a spot, I think it's the end of part 1, beginning of part 2, both, where they're in with the Raptor engines before they got put on Super Heavy. And they look very, very complicated. And Elon basically said, oh, that's a mess. I jokingly said on Twitter that it looked like a Ford Mustang Mach-E HVAC system. But there's a Raptor 2.0 coming. So the Raptors that are being used for this launch are the previous generation or the current generation of Raptor engine, and they're not the future. So the future engine is going to be built, I think, in McAllen, Texas. They're building a factory in Texas to build more Raptor engines. So these are essentially expendable because they're not really the final version of the Raptor. So, I mean, it seems crazy to waste 29 engines, but they don't want to destroy the launch tower trying to land it either. But I think Elon said he didn't think the launch tower would be ready to catch the booster by the time the booster is ready to do the launch, which makes me think the launch is going to be earlier rather than later. ElonBits.com for the water bottle or the t-shirts. So, I think that's all I had on Starship. So, all right, let's move ahead to really quick. We're going to talk about the Patreon Q&A, and that means I got to pull up over here. I didn't get a lot of questions from my Patreon supporters. If you're a Patreon supporter, then I post before the live stream for people to comment with their questions for the Q&A, and this week I only had a few. It's always Mark. Mark is always asking questions. So he said, could any automakers with dealer networks and big advertising budgets ever be able to compete with Tesla? My view is that the existing automakers can't compete with Tesla, and not just Tesla, but other EV startups, because they have too many bureaucratic things holding them back. The dealer networks hold them back. The unions hold them back. The stakeholders, the various different ways, the bureaucracy of the existing corporation. There's so many different things about the way the car companies, the debt that they have, the political restraints. So they're going to go bankrupt. I believe that Ford, General Motors, Daimler, Volkswagen, Toyota, they're all going to go bankrupt because Tesla's going to grow so fast and take so much sales, and they're not going to be able to pay their debts, and they're going to go bankrupt. And their governments are going to bail them out. But when governments bail out companies, they put even more strings on them, make it even more hard for them to compete. So I don't think they're ever going to be able to survive that, no. And, advertising means your product isn't that good and you have to advertise to get people to buy it. Tesla doesn't advertise because the product's so good, they don't need to advertise it. Word of mouth gets it done. Mark asks, what effect will solid-state batteries or other new battery architecture have on Tesla battery development? Will Tesla 4680s be obsolete in 5 years? So, the only solid-state or close to solid-state battery I've seen is from QuantumScape. They don't appear to be produced. Their plans, if they get there, are to produce their solid-state batteries in some volume in like 2028. And that volume is probably less than the number of batteries that Tesla uses today. So by the time QuantumScape is producing, let's say, 80 gigawatt hours of solid-state batteries, if they succeed, Tesla will be producing like 2 terawatt hours of batteries and using like 4 terawatt hours of batteries. So it's going to be a long time before solid-state batteries are competitive, if at all, in terms of the volume produced. And then there's the other problem, which is 4680 is actually pretty impressive, and Elon thinks he's going to get 4680 to 400 watt-hours per kilogram. How good does solid-state have to beat that, and can they get there? And can they produce them not only in volume, but can they produce them at low enough cost to make them competitive? A lot of hurdles for solid-state batteries. I haven't seen anything yet suggesting that there's any solid-state battery on the horizon, even 8 years out, that will be meaningfully will have any meaningful impact on Tesla. And if somebody comes up with one, well, who's the biggest customer? Right? Tesla will be the biggest customer. If somebody comes up with a solid-state battery that's really good, really cost competitive, Tesla's going to be ready to buy them. They're happy to work with any battery supplier. Mark asks, when in 2022 will Tesla deliver the Cybertruck? I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about that next. How will Cybertruck delay affect profits? I don't see Cybertruck as being significant on profits in the short term or medium term, and I'm going to talk about that when I get to the Tesla bit next. And then Mark also asks, will Tesla AI Day be mind-blowing? I think so. I'm very excited about it. If you watch the Autonomy Day video, and I have videos, on one of my early videos, I break down Autonomy Day. If you watch the Autonomy Day video or my video breaking it down, I don't know if I have a video breaking down Autonomy. Watch the Autonomy Day video. It's so much. It was like 3 hours long of all this technical detail. And by the way, I requested an invite to AI Day, and I was basically told no. that AI Day is for engineers. It's a recruiting exercise to try to bring engineers in. I've actually come up on the theory that Cybertruck is actually a recruiting tool, that engineers think that Cybertruck is cool, and that's a way of bringing engineers to want to work for a company that's going to make something cool like that. So I don't think Cybertruck delay is going to be very material. I don't think it's going to be very important, but I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And I think AI Day is indeed going to be mind-blowing. So that's it for the Patreon Q&A, but I do want to, again, thank the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden, all my Patreon supporters for helping the channel grow. And, I hate when that happens. So Patreon supporters get early access to some videos. If you see my videos, some of my videos I released. Typically, I make my videos public in the morning. And if I finish them in the evening or in the daytime the day before, depending on when I finish, often I will publish the video to my Patreon supporters and my YouTube exclusive. If you're a YouTube channel member, there's an exclusive content level and above. Those members also get early access to the videos, typically 8 hours, 12 hours ahead, sometimes less time than that, but that's usually the ballpark. I do some additional content for Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members, and you get to submit questions for the live streams like the ones that Mark submitted that you just heard. So, and then really quick, I wanted to mention, I sell t-shirts like Elon time. I was wearing this t-shirt yesterday, and I went to this Mexican restaurant, which I just had some of my leftovers just now, and the cashier was looking at this t-shirt. And let me just show you close up on the t-shirt. I made a t-shirt a while ago. This is, I don't think it's my most popular t-shirt, but I have sold a fair number of these. And I was wearing the black on white one instead of the white on black one I'm showing you here. But it's sort of 5 different versions of what Starship might be like. And Elon did kind of talk about, for an expendable launch, you take the fins off and you wouldn't have the grid fins. There's a lot of things you could do. There's a lot of different variations that are possible on Starship. And 2 different people in the restaurant, the cashier and then one of the owners, both were staring at the shirt. So if you want a shirt that nerds are going to notice, elonbits.com is linked in the description below, or just go to elonbits.com. Whole bunch of t-shirts. That particular shirt, people notice it. So, let's see here. Todd Morgan asks, have you seen on Twitter about the steel factory being built in Texas for the Cybertruck and SpaceX Steel Dynamics? I've seen something about it, Todd. Thank you for your support. I've seen something about it. I haven't seen enough that I know any meaningful detail. I don't think there's any detail out there. And, I'm not sure how important that is, because they built a lot of Starships and Super Heavies with the steel that they have. So I don't know how important that is. They certainly seem to be getting a lot of steel. I think when they scale Cybertruck and when they start really producing Starships in volume and Super Heavies in volume, yeah, they're probably going to need more steel, and having it local is a good idea. But I haven't seen the story. I did just find, and if you check my Twitter account, I want to say yesterday, Elon mentioned something to Everyday Astronaut about where they're producing the heat shield tiles. They have a factory where they produce the heat shield tiles for Starship, and he mentioned it was next to a Ron John Surf Shop warehouse. And I found that on Google Maps in Canaveral, not very far from Jetty Park. It's basically a long building, and I think the Ron John Surf Shop part is one part of the building, and SpaceX is operating another part, and I think there's like a self-storage in another part of the building. So pretty cool. Yilmaz, yes, I believe Starship will circle the world in, I don't know if it's 90 minutes, and it will land near Hawaii. That is correct. Okay, so let's move on to Tesla. What do I got for Tesla? Okay, so up at the top here, I noted that my Model X Plaid delivery was pushed back to April. I don't even know if I said this in the previous live stream, but I ordered a Plaid Model X. Now, I want to be clear, this is incredibly stupid. Maybe I could afford to buy a Plaid Model X. I've actually worked out, like with financing, I could afford to buy a Plaid Model X. But it's really stupid for me to buy a Plaid Model X. But here's what happened. Let me just take a break from this for a second. So, if you go to Tesla's website, it used to be that Plaid Model X was priced at $120,000 or $119,900 or whatever from the very beginning. And initially, Model X Long Range was priced at $90,000. And then they raised the price of Model X Long Range $5,000, and Plaid Model X price didn't move. And then they raised the price of Plaid Model X another $5,000 to $100,000, and Plaid Model X didn't move. And Plaid Model S Long Range is $10,000 less, consistently $10,000 less than Model X Long Range. Sorry, Model S Long Range is consistently $10,000 less than Model X Long Range. But Plaid Model X is $10,000 less than Plaid Model X. Sorry, Plaid Model X is $10,000 less than Plaid Model S. And this, I'm having this like, it doesn't make sense to me that Plaid Model X should be only $120,000 when Plaid Model S is $10,000 more and Long Range Model S is only $20,000 less than that price. So I didn't buy it yet. I put a reservation in for $100. This is a non-refundable $100 reservation. So there's a really strong chance I'm not going to go through with the purchase and I'll lose the $100. But I was just thinking, well, what will Plaid Model X be worth when it's actually delivered? Right? Because we're seeing a lot of vehicle prices go up. And I think it's very possible that I'll pay $120,000, like with everything on it, including FSD, it's like $140,000. It's very possible that by the time I buy it, it'll be worth $170,000. So I could buy it and flip it. I'm not sure I'm a buy it and flip it kind of guy. I was also thinking I could buy it and live in it, which is stupid. Like make it like a camper, like go traveling in the Model X and drive around. So stupid stuff. But anyway, so when I ordered it, it said it was going to be delivered January to February, and not very long after that, the delivery was, when I checked on it, it said delivery was pushed back. It just said delivery was scheduled for April. I think you can't see that in this tweet. It's in the tweet itself. You can see on the image that delivery is scheduled for April. And at the same time, or right around the same time, Sawyer Merritt tweeted, and if you go on the Tesla website and look at Cybertruck, it now says you'll be able to complete your configuration as production years in 2022. It used to say in the end, late 2021. So Cybertruck production is delayed. Model X is delayed. We're seeing delays of a lot of other things. Semi was delayed until 2022. So I have a theory. I think that Elon has decided, and the team has decided, that Giga Texas and Giga Berlin Model Y is Tesla's top priority, and that they've diverted all of engineering resources that are relevant, that for S and X engineering, for Cybertruck engineering, for semi engineering, all of that's been diverted to Austin and maybe to Berlin so that they can get the manufacturing of Model Y scaled. And the reason for this is demand for Model Y is just insanely high. It's off the charts. They are producing Model Y in increasing volumes in Shanghai. They're producing Model Y, as far as I can tell, in increasing volumes in Fremont. And they can't keep up. The demand for Model Y is off the charts. So they are going to make more of these. And if they can get Texas, and I think I just saw something today that they're expecting to start production of Model Y in Texas in October. They're doing some test production now, or in the next week or so, they're going to start test production, we're in August. So in 2 months, they are hoping to start production of Model Y. And the thing is that Cybertruck's great. I'm excited. I want my Cybertruck. I kind of think if Cybertruck comes before Model X Plaid, then I'll buy Cybertruck and I won't buy Model X Plaid. If Model X Plaid comes before Cybertruck, then I have a tough decision to make. If I think Cybertruck is close, I'll hold off. Because I really want the Cybertruck. I'm like nuts for Cybertruck, and the Cybertruck will cost me a lot less money. But then I could buy this Model X Plaid and then flip it when the Cybertruck comes. All these crazy thoughts in my head. So maybe we'll talk about that in the chat. Jambe, I'm still seeing the chat. I don't know what you're seeing. Maybe we'll talk that in the Q&A at the end. We'll talk about Cybertruck delays, and I just think that when you look at Tesla and if you look at my models for Tesla's production revenues, profits going forward, Model Y is insanely profitable. Model Y has insane demand. So it makes sense for Tesla to scale Model Y production as soon as possible. And if they can get Austin up and running and producing significant volumes of vehicles before the end of the year, the impact on Tesla's revenue and profit for 2022 is big. And the impact going forward into 23 is even bigger. And then once they get the Model Y up and running and significantly making progress, then I think it could put those engineering resources back into Cybertruck is probably a pretty high priority. I think the harsh reality for Model S and Model X fans is they're not the future of the company. They're fun, they're cool, they're impressive, but they are cars for rich people, and ordinary people can't afford Model S and Model X. And, in the long run, they'll scale them and they'll produce them, and they are highly profitable vehicles, but the volume just isn't there. So Philip asks, he's waiting for the 25K vehicle window. I think they'll announce it. I think that Elon said, if you watch Elon's interview with Sandy Monroe, Elon said he didn't want to talk about the next generation Gigafactory, which is what's going to produce the $25,000 vehicle, until after Austin and Berlin were ramped. We're in the process of, we're up and running and ramping. That it's too premature to talk about the next generation Gigafactory until they've made progress on Giga Texas and Giga Berlin. So I think that's when we're going to hear about and I don't think it's a single vehicle. I think that the 2023 vehicle that they talked about in Battery Day is not one vehicle. It is multiple models on a platform. It's really about the factory it's about the machine that builds the machine, which is another t-shirt you can buy on elonbits.com. It's about the machine that builds the machine. If you look at photos of what's going on in Austin, of what Giga Texas looks like, the alien dreadnought, and then you think, okay, this is not the last generation of Tesla factories, that there's another generation coming that's going to be even more amazing. That's what Elon's going to be talking about, I think, mid-2022. Okay, one other bit of Tesla news that I wanted to talk about. President Biden snubbed Tesla, did an event with General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis, which are not, Stellantis is not even an American company, it's a Dutch company, but they are the three largest employers of the United Auto Workers. And the administration, Biden, Jen Psaki, who's the press secretary, Pete Buttigieg, whatever you pronounce his name, who's the transportation secretary, they will not say the word Tesla. They will not say the words Elon Musk. And they had an event that was supposedly about electric vehicles. And they didn't invite to the event the largest manufacturer of electric vehicles in the world, which makes all its electric vehicles in the United States. Unlike, did I have that here? What did I do with that? Wait, where's my, hang on a second. Do I have it? Oh, yeah, I got to do this. I did this joke making fun of Ford, that they're changing the name of the Mustang Mach-E to the Mustango Mex-E to reflect the fact that it's made in Mexico and support the culture and eliminate cultural appropriation. Just being silly. But anyway, I thought this was really funny. This is from Earl of Frunkpuppy in response to the Biden event, not including Elon, that Elon, he somehow did this picture of Elon in front of the White House, Photoshop or whatever. But very cute. Thank you, Earl of Frunkpuppy. 28 delays later is a great account on Twitter. If you don't follow him, you should follow him if you're on Twitter. Anyway, so that's the Tesla news. I think that's everything I had that I'm really excited about. So I'm frustrated about the delays. I'm frustrated that my Cybertruck is delayed. I'm frustrated that my Model X Plaid, the Model X Plaid is like stupid, but I'm frustrated that we're seeing these delays. A lot of people who are Model S customers, Model X customers are frustrated with the delays. Although I did just see another person got a Model S long range order, so there's some progress there. But I think that you can be frustrated with it and say this is wrong and Tesla should be doing a better job. But it's really good news if you think about the fact that if you look at the activity in Austin and you see that they're going to get Giga Texas up and running maybe in October, which means the Q4 vehicle production numbers could be significantly higher once Giga Texas ramps. And if they can get Berlin up and running in Q4 and actually delivering vehicles in Q4, this really boosts Tesla's revenue numbers. And I'm not sure if it boosts the profit numbers because the cost of initial vehicles coming off a production line tend to be high. So you don't actually make profits on the first set of vehicles. But overall, I think this is great news. It's, you'd love for Tesla to have the resources to get everything going fast. And it's just a simple reality. They don't have enough engineers to do everything that needs to be done. And Elon at certain points makes a decision. We really got to focus on this. And you can see that at Starbase, that there's been a really big drive. I think they've moved employees from Canaveral and Los Angeles to Starbase to really crank up the speed of work at Starbase so they can get this orbital launch up and going. So a lot of great stuff happening there. I'm excited. Frustration for some people, but I think overall it's great news. Next, I did a video this week where I interviewed Meyer Thacker. Meyer Thacker. I think it's Meyer Thacker. And I saw a tweet that he did about the Beyond Meat company. If you check my channel and search for the word Beyond, I did a video called Beyond Impossible, and I talked about this. As far as I know, Meyer is one of the only other people who's interested in Beyond Meat. Beyond Meat is what looks like a potentially high growth company making plant-based meat. They use plant matter, I think peas and mung beans and other things to simulate. Effectively, they make meat cells using plant-based matter. They've got great biologists and chemists, a 200 research scientist team in Manhattan Beach, California, working really hard to make meats that are indistinguishable from the actual meat, and much healthier, uses much less resources, a lot of great things. And one of the funny things was, after I did this video, we got so many comments, and he got a bunch of comments, I got a bunch of comments in the video, and it feels like Tesla Q. So there's Beyond Q, and they're like, they can't make it. They say a lot of the same things about Beyond Meat that we see people saying about Tesla, the Tesla Q people saying about Tesla. And I'm actually coming around to the idea that I think Beyond might be a good investment. I was hesitant. There's a lot of questions. The competition is coming, I was worried about. And I think he sold me. So I put in my calendar for Tuesday. I'm busy all day Monday. And I should mention really quick, the reason this video started late is family issues. My mother, as I've talked about before, my mother has Alzheimer's. And I have my mother in an assisted living facility that has been taking very good care of it. I've been very happy with them for a long time. But something apparently changed in their licensing, and I didn't know about it a couple years ago. They changed names, and apparently the new company didn't maintain a particular license that's important for caring for my mother's particular needs, non-Alzheimer's needs. So now they just called me like a couple weeks ago and said, you need to find another place for your mom because we can't handle these other aspects of her needs. So I had to drive up, it's like almost 3 hours to this place in Sebring, Florida. Long story why I'm interested in that location. I went there, kind of like that place. I'm looking at 3 places tomorrow. I'm looking at another place on Wednesday. I have to make a decision. So this is consuming a lot of my time. So my video output might be a little less. I know people often say, oh, sorry, I've dealt with the emotions of my mother's situation a long time ago. I'm sure I have some emotions left in me, but it's just trying to keep her safe and comfortable and as happy as possible and minimize suffering. And that's what I think is important, and I'm trying to find the right place for her. So, and South Florida is where I live, is very expensive, and you don't have to go that far north to get to where it's much less expensive. Literally going to save $2,000 a month by just going an hour north. But Sebring has some other attractions that I'm looking at, which is too far really, but maybe. I did like what I saw. So, I think we covered Beyond. Let's just see what So, well, maybe we can talk about Beyond in the Q&A at the end, because I want to hammer through this. Let's talk about locals really quick. So, I try to avoid talking about politics on my YouTube channel. I do slip in libertarian stuff every once in a while. If you know who I am, my Twitter handle is WR4NYGov. I was the New York candidate, the libertarian candidate for governor of New York in 2010. A lot of my videos on this channel, if you go way back on my channel, I made videos about politics. I made videos about criminal justice because I'm a criminal defense lawyer. And I've really changed tack, and I pretty much just make tech videos here. And some of the videos I would like to make are videos that might get me censored on YouTube or might get me censored on Patreon. So Dave Rubin created Locals, and there's another platform called Substack that would also work, that are what I would call free speech platforms. And so rather than talking about things here, I did make a video about COVID near the beginning of the COVID crisis. And maybe I made 1 or 2 videos, and the risk of being censored and being, demonetized or punished by YouTube for talking about what I really believe is too high. And honestly, I think half of the audience, half of you guys probably don't care what I think about these issues. You just want me to talk about Tesla, SpaceX, whatever. So for the people who are really interested in those topics, I think I'm going to do it on Locals. It's going to be behind a paywall. That's the way it works. And there's, it's not going to have advertising. It's like $5 a month, I think, to join. I'm not even sure if I know the pricing yet. I haven't made a video yet. I really haven't wrapped my head around exactly what videos I'm going to make. Daniel, no, I can't speak slower. It's not possible. So, talk about things like government, politics. It's become really, really toxic to talk about those things in open forums like YouTube, where you're at risk of censorship, where your audience gets really mad at you for saying what you think, and they don't care about that. So rather than talking about it here, and maybe even talking about it less on Twitter than I do now, I'm going to shift that over to Locals. And that will be a better platform for that. But I haven't wrapped my head around exactly what's the first video I'm going to make, what am I going to say. But if you go to locals, if you I don't think I think I put a link in the description. It's warrenredlick.locals.com. If you want to join ahead, but it's premature. I'll tweet about it. I'll talk about it in a future video when I get going on it. So, all right, let's see what's next. Boring Company. This is exciting. So, I just saw there's some news that Boring Company, it looks like, is potentially going to do tunnels in Austin and San Antonio. And if you're familiar with Austin and San Antonio, Texas, you know they're actually not that far from each other. So it would make sense to do a tunnel from Austin to San Antonio as well. I'm not sure whether that's part of the plan in the long run, but in the short run, it appears there's going to be a tunnels run from Giga, Texas to the Austin airport and then to downtown Austin and who knows where else. And there was talk about a potential tunnel system in San Antonio. This goes along with talk about tunnel systems in Fort Lauderdale, which is, I think, very close to moving ahead. I've got it on my calendar to check. They gave 45 days notice for other bids, and I think that's coming up fairly soon. So we'll see whether Fort Lauderdale goes ahead with that project. And then Miami has been talking to Tesla as well, to Boring Company as well. I actually reached out to the mayor of Orlando to see if Orlando was looking into it, and the mayor of Orlando asked me, the office for the mayor of Orlando asked me for my contact with the mayor of Fort Lauderdale so they could talk to them and find out more, because Orlando is a perfect location for the Boring Company. You can imagine tunnels running. Orlando and Tampa are really, really close to each other, closer than Austin and San Antonio. Both have terrible traffic. You know, destinations like Disney and Universal Studios. There's a lot of great destinations to run tunnels to. Maybe you could shoot one out to Canaveral. Maybe that would be an attraction to Elon, because Elon in the Everyday Astronaut video talked about that they're probably going to do a lot of launches from Canaveral. This is probably something I should have talked about in Starship, but I'll talk about it now. Elon has complained, and it's not that somebody did something wrong. The population in the southern tip of Texas is very small. The infrastructure is small. There aren't enough people. There aren't enough infrastructure to support a full-scale starbase. Canaveral is close to Orlando, Florida. There's a whole Space Coast population, Vero Beach, Melbourne, Titusville. There's a whole population around there that has existed for a long time supporting the space industry. So Elon pretty clearly said that Starship will do launches from Canaveral, and they may build Starships in or near Canaveral. They do have a build location there. So very possible that we will see Starships being built in Canaveral, and very, very likely they'll be launched from Canaveral. And I may spend a lot more time near Canaveral in the future. So we'll be talking about that more in the future. Okay, so that's it. So let's go straight into the chat Q&A. What time is it? 6:35. So we got about a half hour. ElonBits.com. This is one of the most popular items on ElonBits.com. The stainless steel water bottle. I love it. Not one of the most popular. I love this shirt. I designed this shirt myself. I love this shirt. For some reason, it's not as popular. It's 4:20, people. Come on. The clock is moving. It's fast. Elon time is fast. Come on, let's go. So let's see what questions we have in the chat. And the stainless steel water bottle, by the way, you can, I don't know how to point to it. It's at the top of the chat. You can click at the top of the chat to find the stainless steel water bottle. So let's see what questions we have. Giga, Texas to Austin Airport is close. Yes, it is close. I think the purpose is not so much just to serve the airport, but to serve Giga, Texas, and the airport and downtown. And I'm going to guess it's going to go more than just downtown. I saw some depiction of it. What is it, like I-35 or something that goes through Austin that's really jammed? So let's see. When will the next Tesla stock buying opportunity be? It's always a Tesla stock buying opportunity. Look, Tesla is trading around $700 a share. Now, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Talk to a financial advisor before you make any financial decisions, blah, 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 blah. People who watch this channel know I think Tesla is going to $25,000 a share in 2026. If you can buy it now for $700 or $750 or $650, what difference does it make? It's going to $25,000 a share. What are you waiting for? IRRI asks, would a tunneling machine fit in a Starship? I believe the answer is yes. I'm not sure if the tunneling machine is 4 meters in diameter. The Starship is 9 meters in diameter. I think it may be that you could fit 3 sections of a tunneling machine inside the payload bay, and maybe then you could fit a whole one in if you broke it into 3 pieces. I'm not sure. So Uh, Thaddeus, I don't know about that. So Thaddeus says I can't flip a car. I'm not planning on flipping it. I'm planning on buying it and owning it, and then when Cybertruck comes, selling it because I'll be buying Cybertruck. Would a tunneling machine? Let's see what else. But when? Just looking at the questions. Let me move this over here so I don't look like I'm not talking to you guys. Answered that question. So locals is just another echo chamber. How does that promote discussion? Well, so Aviv asked this question. I think it's a great question. So locals is just another echo chamber. I don't agree with that. I think there are people on the left and people on the right and people of many different political persuasions who are being censored right now. And censorship does not promote discussion. So the fact that there are different voices talking on different platforms like Substack. I mean, if you look on Substack, there are some pretty left-wing people. I think Glenn Greenwald is one of my favorite people that I follow, and I follow him on Substack. He's one of my favorites. I don't agree with him on half of what he says, but I know that he believes what he says, and he's not afraid to say controversial things. So the echo chamber is the corporate media, which doesn't allow any discussion and ignores facts, ignores conversation. So let's talk about Beyond. What are examples of videos, ideas that get you censored, Warren? Damien, I'm not going to talk about what might get me censored because that might get me censored. I think you know. I think anybody knows. I think you can see people who've been censored, like Alex Berenson has been censored a lot. I think libertarian voices have been censored. John Smith says, I don't get the Beyond stuff. Is it good, though? So I've had the Beyond Burger at BurgerFi, and I think it's great. I've had the Impossible Whopper, which is a competitor in the plant-based meat space. Burger King sells the Impossible Whopper. I think it's good. There are people who are really, really picky about the meat that they eat, and it may not be good enough for those people, but I'm not that picky. I'm not one of these guys who goes, oh, that's a good cut of meat. I like steak. I like burgers. I don't really get that picky about the quality of my steak. There are people who really, really get into it. You know, do I like a Wagyu burger better? Yeah. Is it that much better? I'm not sure. I don't know. But, you know, I think in the long run they will... Oh, Chris Wynn says there's a documentary called Dominion about animal agriculture and the disgraceful treatment of animals. So let's talk about that for a second. There's a bunch of different reasons why Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods, and there's also what's called lab-based meat, where they clone animal cells to produce meat. There's a bunch of reasons why they're important. Number one, they use a lot less resources. They use a lot less land, they use a lot less energy, and they use a lot less water. Speaking of water, elonbits.com. They use a lot less land, they use a lot less energy, they use a lot less water. So they should, in the long run, cost less to produce when they scale. One of the challenges is agriculture, traditional agriculture tends to get subsidized. So it's even harder for Beyond Meat, Impossible Foods, lab-based meats to compete because the competition is subsidized by government. You know, the government is, and you know, greenhouse gases, like I'm not a climate change nut, but I understand the argument. And cattle, and I like beef, and I eat beef, okay? So I'm guilty of this, right? But cows emit a lot of methane. They fart a lot and methane comes out. And while methane is good for powering Starship, people who believe in climate change believe that methane is really, really bad for the climate. And we have a lot of cows putting out a lot of methane. And plant-based meat and lab-based meat do not emit methane. So that's a really important factor as well. So there's a lot of advantages in a lot of different ways. And there's health advantages. So when you produce... So number one, they typically have less cholesterol. The plant-based meats at least have less cholesterol than animal meat. Which I'm not as convinced that cholesterol is as important as other people, but also... No antibiotics are used in the production of the plant-based meats or the lab-based meats. There's no feces involved. There's no urine involved. You know, there's a challenge. There's a lot of uncleanliness in the animal industry, animal agriculture industry, that is gone when you do plant-based meat and lab-based meat. And then there's the ethics point, which Chris brings up, that animals are not treated well. Now, I don't have a strong opinion on that. I don't know. I think there are documentaries that play up the mistreatment of animals at like the worst places. And it may be that they're treated a lot better other places and you only get the negative story. But regardless, you're stuffing an animal and you're killing it. You can argue that's not ethical. And there's the other side of the coin, which is John Stossel says, the thing that keeps animals from going extinct is when we eat them. Because when we eat them, then we grow up, we produce more of them, so the species doesn't go extinct. So Let's see. Let me see if are people asking questions about Beyond. Oh, that's the other thing. One of the biggest criticisms of Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods is that it's processed food. And Ethan Brown of Beyond Meat really nails this. So a cow processes vegetables, grasses, and other things into meat, right? The cow eats the grasses, whatever it eats, whatever vegetation it eats. It goes into the cow. Its stomach converts it into one thing. The intestines convert it into another thing. It goes in the bloodstream. It ends up in the muscle cells and in the fat cells of the animal. The cow is processing vegetables into meat, right? And that's what Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods do, is they process vegetables into meat. It's just a different process. It's a process that uses less land. It's a process that uses less water. And it's a lot less land and a lot less water, by the way, and half as much energy. And it doesn't emit methane. So there's many, many advantages to the way Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods process meat. You're imagining that a cow is not a process. The cow it's just a different process, and it's not a good process. So, Damien, great question. I love this question, Damien. He says, you seem to be picky about sushi. Yes, S-U-S-H-I, not S-H-U-S-H-I. Does that include... So I think it's possible, and even I would say likely, that someone will come up with, and I would say sashimi is the more important thing. Sushi is raw fish with rice. Not just raw fish, but it's mostly raw fish with rice. And sashimi is the raw fish without the rice. So you really, really taste the texture and taste and quality of the fish in sashimi as compared to in sushi, where you wrap it and put a rice on it and you put avocado and other stuff on it. The sashimi, you're pretty much just getting the fish, dipping it in soy sauce, but not a lot else. So I definitely think that would be a really, really good market for high-end plant-based or cell-based meat, is to go after high-end sushi, high-end sashimi, high-end fish, because it's really expensive. So if you're like a regular sushi eater and you go to a place and you pay $15 for a plate of sushi, you're eating cheap sushi. I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're eating cheap sushi, and the quality of the fish is not that high. And if you have the sashimi there, it won't be as good. And you might not notice because you might not be sophisticated, because I'm a sushi snob and I believe I know what I'm talking about. If you go to a high-end sushi place, like if you go to New York City and you go to a mid-level sushi place, you might be spending $40 or $50 for your meal, and you're getting a higher grade of fish. But if you spend a lot of money, if you spend $100 on your meal, and I've got a place in Boca Raton that I go to, there's a place in New York City called Sushi Azabu. They have really, you drop $100 on dinner at one of these places, you're getting really, really high-end fish. And if you eat the sashimi, you can tell the difference. If you get really high-end fish and you wrap it in rice and seaweed and you put cream cheese on it and avocado on it, and you're hiding the quality of this really good fish. Why are you doing that? If you got really, really good fish, you want to eat the sashimi. Maybe you have it in what's called nigiri. It's on a ball of rice and it's just the fish and the rice and not much else. Maybe that's worth doing. That's my opinion. Sorry, I dove into sushi there a little bit. So I think there's a lot of potential for that particular market, because the price is so high already for high-end fish that if you can emulate fish and it costs you a lot to get there, you can still sell it. And I would buy that. I would definitely be all over that if somebody came up with that. I think ultimately you would be able to lower the cost of high-end sashimi. Charlie says, hey, Warren, do you think there would be any collaboration between Tesla restaurants and Kimmel Musk's restaurants? I don't think so, but it's possible. I think Kimball's restaurants are high-end, and I think the idea of Tesla restaurants would be they're at a Supercharger station, you have a half hour. And I don't think Kimmel Musk restaurants are half-hour restaurants. I think they're hour-and-a-half restaurants. Let's see. Michael asks, great question, Michael. Michael Chuang asks, Warren, we love you here in our house. Question, what about your plan to raise money for the Boring Company? Thanks. So I think I talked about it last week, or maybe I talked about it in my recent video. Neuralink did a funding round. If you check in the description below, there's a link to my email list for investing. And I have this idea about, sorry, let me just check something here. I have this idea about starting what's called a special purpose vehicle, a venture capital fund, basically, to help not quite retail investors, but some not absurdly wealthy people join together in a fund that specifically targets either Boring Company, Neuralink, or SpaceX. And I was going through this process and talking with potential investors, and I settled on Boring Company as the target. To some extent, I regret not thinking about Neuralink first. My theory was that Neuralink would raise money later, Turns out Neuralink just raised money before Boring Company, although Boring Company had a funding round first. So Neuralink just raised $200 million. I don't think we would have gotten in on the Neuralink funding round because it was really big funds that were really connected and really strategic. So I think it's unlikely if we had had a fund with, let's say, I don't think we would. I think the fund was going to maybe get $5 million if I had gotten all the investors together. Maybe $5 million. I'm not even sure we would have raised that. And I don't think we would have been a big enough player to get in on that funding round. So I had thought about, I solidified on the idea of doing a funding round for Boring Company, and I put it on hold for basically 6 months because I did not get enough positive response. I got some positive response. I got letters from people. I asked people to sign letters saying they're willing to commit a certain amount of money, and it added up to, I think potentially if I did it, there's a cap of, I think 90, I think the cap was like 99 investors, and you really want to do 95 or something like that. If I added up the biggest commitments, it was like $11 million or $15 million or something. But it's one thing to ask somebody to sign a letter. It's another thing to ask somebody to sign a check. And my gut hunch was, I can't measure this, is that we wouldn't have raised more than $5 million. And I don't think it's worth doing as a fund unless we're going to get closer to 10 million. So if my email list grows, if I get more people who are motivated, I think the fact that Tesla stock isn't as high as it was turned some people off. I think if Tesla was trading around $1,000 a share, $1,500 a share, people would feel like they have more money and they'd be willing to risk. Because you really have to put in at least $100,000. Really, to make this work, we're going to need at least $100,000 per investor on average. I mean, minimum, probably $100,000 an investor. So, which is hard, right? But it's just that's federal law. It's not my choice. It's federal law that makes it hard to do this unless you raise a minimum of $100,000 apiece. So I had been thinking I would look at that again in 6 months, but now I'm on this different kick where I'm thinking about starting up my own company. Not thinking about it, I've already started. I paid someone to start the design of the single passenger vehicle that will eventually be a single passenger robo taxi, starting the design of an alpha prototype. And a friend of mine who lives a mile from me, Andrew and I are going to work together on building the alpha prototype. And then once we have the alpha prototype, we'll work on a beta prototype. And I'm going to do this on my own money, but at some point I may need to do funding for this company. And I might go to the same people on the investing list for that and do a crowdfunding round. And I'll talk about that on this channel as well when I get to the point of crowdfunding round. Anyway, thank you for your question, Michael. Model X will have a white interior, red paint, FSD. I don't remember if there are any other options on that. Why is Elon so poisonous to politicians? He's not poisonous to politicians. Politicians are poisonous to the people. When do I think Tesla will start mining lithium in Nevada? I'm not sure what's going on with that. No, bikini girls do not get me censored. H. Layla, yes, $25,000 a share in 2026. I have a video. Check this channel. Search this channel for the number 2026, and you will see I have a video talking about why I think Tesla's going to be $25,000 a share in 2026. It's really simple, but check out the video. Have I tested... No asks, have you tasted Beyond Meat? Doesn't taste good. Impossible Meat is good. I've had both of them. I think they're both good. It's not for everybody. Different people are going to have different tastes. Beyond Meat just introduced Beyond Burger 3.0. They have a new generation of Beyond Burger that's supposedly better. I thought the Generation 2 was good. So I can't wait to try the next one. Oh, great. Marty Party asked this question. I love this question. If one robo-taxi replaces 5 cars, and Tesla plans to make 20 million cars a year, and there's about 100 million cars sold a year, doesn't this include the whole market? That makes a lot of sense, but I disagree. The reason I disagree is because there's 2 billion vehicles on the planet that we need to replace. And if 20 million robo-taxi EVs replace 100 million vehicles, it's going to take 20 years to replace the fleet. So if we can... So, I think Tesla's going to produce more than 20 million cars. And I also think that as they lower the cost of transportation, as robotaxi EVs lower the cost per mile of transportation, people will travel more. More miles will be traveled, and we will need more vehicles to carry people. My single passenger EV will get the cost of a trip down to 5 cents a mile or less. You can imagine robo buses going through boring tunnels, carrying 20 people and getting the cost of a trip down to maybe 2 or 3 cents a mile. And people from South Florida, going to Disney for a day trip, an hour-long trip in a boring tunnel from South Florida to Disney and then back, and they don't even have to stay in a hotel at night. There's all kinds of ways that this can save a lot of money. Let's see. I think Elon said that producing one Cybertruck costs $1 million. Not producing them in volume will not cost $1 million. So Ray Johnson says he suggests a collaboration with Stephen Mark Ryan, who runs the channel Solving the Money Problem. I love Stephen Mark Ryan. I think he's a great YouTuber. I don't think the collaboration with Stephen Mark Ryan makes a lot of sense because we agree on almost everything. My joke is that I watch a Stephen Mark Ryan video and I don't watch a lot of them, and it's frustrating for me because I see somebody who says a lot of the same things. We say them differently. We have different ways of saying them. And I personally think that there's more depth to what I say, but that's a long story. But basically, I see a guy who says mostly the same things that I say, who's better looking and has a cool accent. So, you know, it's almost frustrating to watch Stephen Mark Ryan because he's better looking. But, you know, I don't think a collaboration with Stephen Mark Ryan adds that much because we say the same things. So, like, having Meyer Thacker on was really good because he has a different perspective, and I learned something from him beyond me. I don't feel like I learned anything from Stephen Mark Ryan because I feel like we're getting the same information from the same sources. We're saying the same things. I love the guy. I think he's great. I think he's a great part of the Tesla Twitter community, the Tesla YouTuber, Tesla community. It's just, and I would be happy to talk to him. I think he's bigger than me too. He's like 4 times my size in all measures. I'm probably taller than him and heavier. But he's the big time. I'm not the big time. I would be happy to talk to him anytime. I love the guy. Mark says, how much is a round to it worth? Around to it? Getting around to it? So there's this person in the chat, Green Gold, who says, Elon said Cybertruck costs $1 million to make. His words, not mine. Yes, because Green Gold, I'm guessing you're trolling the channel and you're an idiot. If you only make one vehicle, then it costs a lot to make it. When you make 100,000 of them, on a per vehicle basis, it costs a lot less. When you make 1 million of them, it costs a lot less. So making one of them is really expensive. Making a lot of them is a lot cheaper per vehicle. I'm sorry that this is hard for you to understand. If you continue to troll the channel like that, you will be blocked. Legula asks, hi Warren, are you going to combine your venture capital fund with Ghali's Hyperguap? No, Ghali has his, I have mine. Ghali, I don't know if Ghali has ever replied to a tweet of mine, maybe once. I love Ghali. He's one of the channels that I don't watch a lot of Ghali, but I still love the guy and I do watch him occasionally. I became a YouTuber in part because of Ghali. Ghali is the Hyperchange channel on YouTube. I love his channel, and he is one of the channels that motivated me to start making videos. But I don't think the venture capital fund, that doesn't work. I mean, if he approached me and says, hey, Warren, bring your investors over to Hyperguap, I would talk to him. But I think we have different goals. I have a very specific goal of raising money just to invest in either Boring or Neuralink. And Ghali is like into like Arcimoto, and he's doing more than one investment. He's got a more traditional venture capital fund. I don't know. I just heard that he has a more traditional fund that invests in different things. And I want my principal goal is to focus on Boring and Neuralink, maybe SpaceX, but primarily Boring and Neuralink, and to make the fund as low cost as possible. Because if you get involved in venture capital investing is very expensive. You pay a 2% a year management fee for a typical venture capital fund, sometimes 2.5%. You pay 20% carried interest, meaning the fund takes 20% of the gain. And I want to do it where it's like 0.5% a year management fee and a 10% carried interest instead of 20% carried interest. So you as the investor spend a lot less on the investment. You have a better chance of making money, and you keep more of the money you make if you make money. So that's the idea. But it's really hard to get it together, and it's really hard to find enough investors who really have $100,000 and are really willing to put $100,000 up. It's just a really, really hard thing to do. And this is why startups typically are done with investments from very wealthy people. And this is why we have federal laws that make it hard for ordinary retail investors to invest in startups through venture capital. And I view it as the federal government is protecting the middle class from the dangers they might get rich. Right? They're isolating a particular type of investing and limiting it to only rich, very rich people. And even $100,000 for like the big venture capital funds, $100,000 probably isn't enough to get in. So they basically decided we only want really, really rich people to have access to these really, really great investments, which are very risky, right? So I understand it from that sense, but we have these SPACs with people investing tons of money in Nikola and Lucid Motors, and they're losing a ton of money. They're not protecting people from that. I don't understand the crowdsourced advertisements comment. No. So, let's see. Do I need to block? Let's see. Yeti says, how do I think eVTOLs, which is electric vertical takeoff and landing jets, robotaxis, Hyperloop, point-to-point Starship, and Elon's forthcoming electric plane will best integrate? There is no Elon's forthcoming electric plane. I believe Elon has talked about eVTOL. I made a video about this. I think I made a video about it. Maybe I should make a video about this. I made a video called 10 Industries that Robotaxi and Elon Musk and Starship, SpaceX will destroy. I don't know if maybe I didn't make a video. I don't think eVTOL, I think that Hyperloop and Boring Company tunnels and Robotaxi destroy the market for commercial aviation. That Robotaxis and boring tunnels and Hyperloops are inherently better than flying in almost every circumstance. And the only exception is really, really long distance flights where Starship Earth to Earth is better than planes. So I think I see a future, and I could be wrong about this, right? But I see in the future that the cost per mile traveled of air travel is always going to be more expensive than the cost of tunnel travel or the cost of robotaxi travel. And the Starship Earth to Earth is going to be faster than eVTOL. So I think the market for eVTOL ends up being very small and not a good investment. I think robotaxis, if you want to go 100 miles, just an ordinary robotaxi will get you there fast, 50 miles, whatever. Once you get up to like 200, 300, 400 miles, intercity trips from, say, Miami to Orlando or something like that, then a Boring Company tunnel wouldn't need to be a Hyperloop to still get you there pretty fast, but it could be a Hyperloop. So, but boring tunnels, 50-mile trips, you're probably doing 150 miles an hour. You get there in 20 minutes when ordinarily it would have taken over an hour. And then longer trips, maybe it's Hyperloop, and Hyperloop gets you there faster. And Hyperloop will probably cost less per mile than flying and be more convenient. So, let's see. John says that Mayer had a list of other investments. If you search YouTube for his name, there was a video that I watched before I did mine with him, where he talked to another guy about investing. He may have covered a couple others besides Beyond Meat. I don't remember. But I would watch that video. I think he's really insightful. I think it was a really good video. Let's see. Ray Johnson says, Warren, can SpaceX get to a point of using less methane or no methane for transport? No, I believe that methane is the fuel of the future for SpaceX. That what they can do is they can get to the point of producing methane from the CO2 in the atmosphere using the Sabatier process so that it's carbon neutral for those who are worried about CO2 emissions. And in particular, it's very useful because you'll be able to produce methane on the moon potentially and or Mars. Not sure how you do it on the moon. Let's see. John asks, have I heard the rumor that Tesla would buy a semiconductor foundry, or is that unfounded? Elon said no. Elon was asked about it in the Q2 investor call, and he said it would take too long to spool up a chip fab, and that, by the time they spool up their chip fab, the disruption in the chip supply will probably be resolved. And probably the idea that Tesla could spool up a chip fab in 12 to 18 months is like a dream. So Green Gold, you have not asked tough questions. I don't know what questions you're asking other than your question about Cybertruck, which was an absolutely stupid question. So if you are a subscriber and you actually believe that Elon thinks Cybertruck will cost $1 million a piece, then you should unsubscribe from this channel and watch, I don't know, Thunderfoot. Because you'll believe him. You're not going to believe me when I tell you that that's absolutely stupid. So, would I consider creating a league of extraordinary YouTubers to investigate Nikola Motors? I don't care about Nikola Motors. I never cared. I always thought it was stupid. I was surprised anybody bought that story. Have I looked into buying Tesla cars and renting them on Turo? Yes, I have thought about that in Clubhouse. If you join the Tesla Universe group on Clubhouse, we talk about that occasionally. We just talked about it the other day. I think it really makes a lot of sense for like a Model Y, Model 3. I think to some extent it makes sense for a Model S. I think it really helps if you live near an airport and you can deliver the car to the airport for the the person who's picking up the car. There's a way, and I don't live near an airport, so it's hard. I mean, I live like an hour from an airport. If you live 15 minutes from an airport, it makes a lot more sense. I think there's a lot of potential for that. How much revenue will Tesla make from sharing their superchargers to other EVs? I don't think a lot. It's a good question. I think this is John, Mr. Sena. Oh, you must be a John Cena fan. I don't think a lot of revenue from other EVs because there aren't that many other EVs. There's a lot more Teslas, and there's going to be a lot more Teslas. So I don't think it's a revenue thing. I think it's just a good faith thing to try to encourage other makers to make EVs and to make life easier for buyers of other EVs. And also, if you think about it, if you have your Tesla Supercharger network and somebody has another EV and they need to charge and they end up at a Tesla Supercharger station, it's great branding for Tesla. Right? You're exposing somebody who's already looks like a potential EV buyer to the best brand, the best EVs. And they might be more likely to say, why do I have this crappy other EV? I should buy a Tesla. So, Jim says carried interest sucks. Carried interest might suck, but, Jim, the question is, what motivates the venture capitalist to start the venture capital fund if they're not going to make a profit off their effort? Right? I mean, it isn't just about putting the investments together and I get my piece of the investment. That person who puts together the investing fund, the carried interest motivates them to do a successful investment. Because if you do venture capital, right, and you get a 2% management fee and you don't get carried interest, then you don't really care whether, you care a lot less whether you're going to be successful in the fund, right? You get your 2% on the invested assets, whatever happens. If you succeed, you make most of your money on the carried interest, and that motivates, it aligns the interest of the venture capitalist with the investors. Because if you make money, I make money. So, Mark says, I noticed Elon replied to your tweet. Which one, Mark? I don't know which one you're talking about. Elon's replied to 4 of my tweets, and I don't know which one recently that I'm trying to remember. He replied to one at the end of last month. How do my thoughts regarding climate change and COVID mesh with Tesla's mission? Well, my thoughts on COVID have nothing to do with Tesla's mission, and my thoughts on climate change are, I would say it really simply, I think fossil fuels are bad anyway. Whether you're worried about climate change or not, fossil fuels are bad for the environment. Coal is terrible for the environment. Coal probably kills 100,000 or a million people a year or more. We see oil spills. Have you ever inhaled diesel fumes when you're walking down a city street? I have been concerned about fossil fuels and excited about electric vehicles long before anybody talked about climate change. I think it's great if we can get rid of diesel fuel and think about the diesel fuel that powers ships that cross the ocean and the tremendous pollution from that. It's not just about climate. If you think that it's all about climate change, you're missing something. All right. Green gold has been hidden. Just be clear. If you troll the channel in the chat, then you're going to get hidden from the channel, which means your comments will not be visible to anyone else anymore. So, I mean, there's consequences. Let's see. Will unions force regulators to stall, deny FSD? I don't think that's necessarily the threat. The question is whether unions will hinder the deployment of FSD. I think that there are political threats to Tesla's mission. I think the fact that Biden had this event with electric vehicles, and didn't invite Tesla is a very clear shot that the Biden administration opposes Tesla. I don't think you can find another way of saying it. The Biden administration, Joe Biden has never said the word Tesla. He has never said the word Elon Musk. He has talked about how he wants to drive an electric Corvette. Apparently, he's unaware that the Plaid Model S is way faster than any electric Corvette will ever be. If you want to drive an electric sports car, Tesla has them. So this administration is, I understand I have a lot of followers who are Democrats. I have some followers who are Republicans. EV supporters tend to be Democrats. I don't know how you come to the reality. If somebody just questioned me about climate change and Tesla, how can you be I'm a libertarian. I don't support Republicans or Democrats. I think they're all war criminals. That's a long conversation. But, how can you still support Joe Biden if you support Tesla's mission and you see Joe Biden absolutely hates Tesla? I don't know. I mean, I don't understand how you can do that. But is it unions in particular? I don't know if unions are going to be the problem. I think car dealers are a problem. Car dealerships tend to be Republican and tend to be very politically powerful. And they affect They try to hinder Tesla's growth. Unions, yes, they try to hinder the growth of anybody who tries to do things without unions. I think there's a whole bunch of political interest. Taxis. Uber and Lyft are probably concerned about robo-taxi coming out. Taxis tried to stop Uber and Lyft. All this stuff happens all the time. Broke Malone, great question. Do I think they will raise the current Cybertruck price before it comes out? Yes. Yes, I think it's very likely that Cybertruck will be priced higher. I fully anticipate my Cybertruck. I will have a $50,000 dual motor Cybertruck with $7,000 FSD. I fully anticipate the price will go up $10,000. I don't see how they can sell it with what Model Y is selling for, with what the other vehicles are selling for now. I think they have to raise the price of Cybertruck. Let's see. This is interesting. TN says there's a possibility that Biden owns Tesla shares. I don't think Biden owns Tesla shares. Pelosi's husband, I believe, spent $500,000 on Tesla options. But it wasn't. So I mean that's a positive. That tends to be favorable to Tesla. Thaddeus says, what do you think about my theory that Tesla represents the pent-up innovation caused by the United Auto Workers creating second mover advantage, striking on profitable OEMs first? I think there's a bunch of different things that made traditional automakers, OEMs, stayed and non-innovative. I mean, they innovate. I mean, like people criticize me for owning a Volkswagen Passat. My Volkswagen Passat the engine is basically an evolution of the Audi A4 I had before, and I just drove 4 or 5 hours today. I think I drove 6 hours today. I averaged 40 miles a gallon. And that's with an automatic transmission. I used to have a 5-speed stick on an Audi A4, and I would, be lucky to get 32 miles a gallon on the highway. If I hypermiled it, I could get better mileage. But yeah, I think, and can't really, there's no downhills here, so I got 40 miles a gallon in fairly warm weather, like 80, 85 degree weather. And I think one of my tires is low too. I got to figure that out. So let's see. What year will I be able to summon a Tesla with Neuralink? So if you watch the video I just did this week with about Neuralink with Siobhan, I broke down a video from Siobhan Zillis. I think we're talking about 12 to 15 years before healthy people who don't have any kind of particular disease will be able to get a Neuralink for purposes like that. And that's probably optimistic. But I do think that otherwise healthy people may be able to get Neuralinks in about 10 years. And I'm 55 and I want to have it by the time I'm 70. So 15 years is great. I'm at high risk for Alzheimer's because my mother and my grandmother, my mother has Alzheimer's, her mother had Alzheimer's. I'd say there's a 50-50 shot I get Alzheimer's by the time I'm 80. So if I can get a Neuralink by the time I'm 70, make it happen. Damien says, doesn't Elon have to charge at least as much as EVgo or other public chargers? Otherwise, Tesla's giving a benefit and savings. I think it's possible that non-Tesla people charging will pay a higher price. And I don't think I don't own a Tesla. I don't charge a Supercharger. My impression is that it's not necessarily too cheap for a Tesla owner to charge a Supercharger. So I don't think they need to charge more to other EV owners. I think maybe they will, but I doubt it. I think they're charging more based on the time of day that you charge because there's so much demand at some times of day that they want to encourage people to charge at off times. Oh, good. Lido, Idaho says, can I open up Supercharger and snack bar in my backyard? I don't think so, but there is a program at Tesla where if you have a business, you can apply to host a Supercharger at your business, or a charger at your business anyway. My friend Larry runs a large jewelry, a building that has a lot of jewelers in it. I don't know, 50 or 100 jewelers. So it's a lot of high-end customers. And I think he applied and they said no, which I was surprised about because he's near the Florida Turnpike. He has a lot of high-end customers coming in this place. I think they said no, but I think we're going to see that expand. There is no Starlink competition. There is no valid question about Starlink. Jim, if you can put in the comment what his question was, because I hid Green Gold from the channel because he was just being trolling as far as I could tell. Night Trekker says, shouldn't gas stations be begging Tesla to install superchargers at their locations? I believe the Wawa gas stations are starting to install superchargers. I think, and I think, somebody said that there's a chain in the Southeast. Talked about them before. I went to this place. There's this chain with these really huge, like 100 pump gas stations. And they have this big store that goes along with it, and they are supposedly starting to install Tesla superchargers as well. So, Lido says, have you no slot for a neo-Confederate EV lover who understands the culture of dim sum and oyster sauce? I don't get that. Am I the neo-Confederate EV lover? I'm not sure I understand dim sum. I'm a Japan head, not a China head. If the VC provides guidance and does the work, they deserve it. But I don't like carried interest for dumb money. No, that's the whole point, Jim, is that the VC is only successful if he's really careful about the investments he makes. If they put a lot of effort. The typical venture capital firm has, many employees researching all these companies, trying to figure out what the best investment is, how to do it, how to negotiate the deals with the startups. There's a lot of work that goes into being a successful venture capitalist. What's his name? Steve Jurvetson. I think his firm is Future Ventures, and he's a board member, or was a board member of Tesla and SpaceX, and involved in Boring Company. He was at the Neuralink event with the pigs. He is a venture capitalist. They put a lot of work into it. It's not just put the money together and hand money to Elon. There's a lot more to it than that. When is Starlink going to come out of limited beta? I don't know. I might buy a Starlink soon. That's another conversation, but... Oh, Marty Party says, I need an AC system waiting for the Tesla HVAC system. When might you see it on the market? I'm in the same boat. I think, like I said, Tesla's engineering resources are fully into getting Giga Texas and Giga Berlin going on Model Y. I think the resources to do Tesla HVAC for home probably aren't there right now. They got a mission, a clear mission. This is a common thing I see. So Philip says, for sanitary reasons, I would like my own car. Robo-taxis will be germ factories unless they get robots sanitize them after every client. So Philip, there are billions of people who ride mass transit. So I appreciate that wealthy people like you and me like to be in our own car and like to feel like we're clean. But the vast majority of the world doesn't have the privilege that you and I have. And I do think that there are steps that can be taken, that the robo-taxi network can be designed in a certain way to, just as an example, you have the app on your phone, and as you get in the car, you take a picture before you get in, and you take a picture before you get out, and it like instantly uploads it to the app, showing where you sat and that it was clean where you sat. And there's a camera on the rearview mirror that's also looking in the car. And if you're about to get in the car and you see vomit in the car, you take a picture, you say, this car has vomit, whatever, I'm not riding in it. And the previous rider gets billed for the vomit in the car, right? And that discourages people from messing up the car. If somebody messes up the car, they're going to have to pay for it. You're just going to wait another couple minutes for the next robo-taxi to come pick you up. And the robo-taxi will get cleaned, and the person who messed it up will get billed. And it's not perfect. And then, the other thought is, like, I don't think that the robo-taxi network is going to be populated mostly by privately owned vehicles. I think Tesla will own a fleet. I mean, Elon has said so. I think we will see fleets operating robo-taxis. And I do think it's unlikely that you will own your own robo-taxi, because it's going to be really expensive to buy a robo-taxi, because the robo-taxi is so valuable in the robo-taxi fleet. Lido, I don't know what club you're talking about. Sorry. What are we? There's these comments here. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Do I see where SpaceX will put billboard ads in space? I don't think SpaceX is going to put billboard ads in space. I have not seen that. Yeah, Buc-ee's. That's the name of it. Buc-ee's. I think I heard that Buc-ee's is going to add superchargers. Gas prices are spiking. Gas prices are up. I saw $3 a gallon in Florida today in places that are usually cheap. Any China numbers released? I don't think I've seen China numbers yet. I have been looking for that, and I don't think they're out yet. No, this is people are waiting to. We're waiting to see how many vehicles Tesla sold in China in the third quarter, or sorry, in the month of July. And I don't think that number's out yet, but I think a lot of the vehicles are shipped to Europe, so maybe a confusing number. The numbers might not include the vehicles that are produced at the Shanghai factory and shipped to Europe, so it might not be clear. Let's see. Yeah, Bucky's. Sorry. Jim says Green Gold saw some dumb article that said SpaceX competition is coming. So look, there's existing satellite communication networks that suck compared to Starlink. There is, I believe, Jeff Bezos or OneWeb or somebody is talking about launching a competing network. Good luck to you. SpaceX is dramatically lowering the cost of its launching. Its, the only way you're going to be able to do that is if SpaceX launches your satellites for you, and they might do it. If OneWeb said, "Hey, SpaceX, will you launch our competing satellites with you?" Maybe they would do it. I don't know. But your cost of launching satellites is going to be higher, and then SpaceX is manufacturing their Starlink satellites in volume, so their cost of the satellites is going down. They have so many advantages. It's going to be really hard. They have the first mover advantage. There's so many advantages. It's going to be really hard to compete with them. And yes, it's Bucky's. Did you see Volkswagen's DICE scathing report of their charging stops? No, I did not see that. Lito says, Warren, should we go on a low-carb diet and lose our spare tires? I am trying. I actually am on a low-carb diet, and I am trying to lose my spare tire. I'm 20 pounds overweight easy. Do I think they will start producing dual-motor Cybertruck at the same time as tri-motor? My guess is that they will produce tri-motor first, and then I will be faced with the decision. They will call me and they will say, hey, Warren, if you want your dual-motor, if you want your Cybertruck, you have to buy a tri-motor. Then I'll probably buy the tri-motor. TN says, this is about me, that I faced cancellation or cost overruns on a solar roof. My solar roof was delayed and the cost went up dramatically. Do I have any thoughts on the Texas and South Florida developers making a Tesla-powered neighborhood? It's not really a Tesla-powered neighborhood. There is a development I just read about in Palm Beach Gardens. Can't think of the name. It's not quite coming to me. But if you search for Palm Beach Gardens Tesla solar, you'll come up. I believe that's solar panels, not solar roof. And that is a really, really high-end neighborhood. Like I think it's a country club development with a Jack Nicklaus designed golf course. So those homes are going to be really, really expensive. There's one in Texas that looks serious. There's another one that people keep tweeting to me or mentioning to me about Allset, which is Tesla spelled backwards. So far, I have not seen Allset actually build a house, and they've been talking about it for over a year. So when they build a house, let me know. It's a great idea. The problem is that if you are a typical home builder, the cost of Teslas, like solar panels might make sense. The cost of, if you design the house so that the roof is designed for solar roof tiles from the get-go, then maybe it works. But high-end homes tend to have complex roofs, and complex roofs tend not to work well with Tesla solar roof. So there's a challenge there. And then the home builder usually makes a markup on the roof. They pay very little. They pay a lot less for a roof than you and I pay for a new roof. So they're going to have to pay a much higher cost for the solar roof than they would pay for a regular roof themselves. And then they have to charge the buyer more. And it's this question of I think it's really hard to get solar roof working. Solar panels, I think, make a lot more sense. And I think we're going to see more of that. But maybe Tesla will finally figure out the solar roof idea and they'll make it work. So far I don't see it. Do I think Biden will put a unit cap per automaker on proposed tax credit for buying EVs? I don't know. It's so hard to predict what's going to happen with any tax credits. I don't think tax credits are going to happen because any tax credit you do is going to benefit Tesla more than the other car makers because they don't make them in volume. I don't think there's a way around it. Jim says some people claim some diets help avoid Alzheimer's. So my mother was vegan for 25 years and she didn't avoid Alzheimer's. I don't know what diet's going to help people avoid Alzheimer's. I think it's a genetic condition primarily, but we'll see. I think that calorie restriction might work. Maybe. Good question from Trent. Thank you, Trent, for your support, for being a member of the channel, by the way. And thank you to the moderators. When will we see the first legacy auto company go bankrupt? Which one first? I think we're probably talking 2023, 2024. Tesla's going to scale up production. And right now they made 500,000 vehicles in 2020. I think 2023, maybe they make 5 million vehicles. So 2023, 2024, it's when their production of vehicles gets such high volume that it cuts into sales for some of the other automakers enough that they can no longer make their debt payments. So maybe 2025. And who's first? That's impossible to say. I think General Motors and Ford are in trouble. I think Volkswagen's got a lot of debt. I think who has the most debt? Who loses the most sales to Tesla? I mean, Toyota probably loses the most sales, but I don't know. Toyota and Volkswagen lose the most sales, and they have a lot of debt. 3 miles a gallon at 80 miles an hour? Seriously? I get like 35 miles a gallon at 80 miles an hour in my Volkswagen. What's the next legacy industry that's ripe for disruption? Well, meat is very clearly an industry that's ripe for disruption. Housing is an industry that's ripe for disruption. That's my opinion. Government would be great to disrupt. James says, just to be clear, would we still get Cybertruck at original price if we pre-ordered? I don't think so. I think you would still get FSD at the price you pre-ordered it at, but I think it's likely that the price of the Cybertrucks will go up. In other words, I ordered a dual motor for $50,000 plus $7,000 for FSD. I expect to maintain the $7,000 FSD price, but I expect that the price of the truck is going to go up. Maybe not, but I think it will. I think it may be that if by the time they start producing Cybertrucks, the supply chain has gotten better and 4680s are being produced in high volume at relatively low cost, then maybe they will be able to produce it for the price they said. We'll see. But my guess is the early Cybertrucks will cost more. And also there's inflation going on that's driving up everything. So it doesn't make sense to hold them to the price if inflation drives up the price. Justin says, will government bail out the OEMs and restructure their debt? I think that yes. I think that that the US government will bail out Ford and General Motors, that the German government will bail out Volkswagen, that the Japanese government will bail out Toyota, and then they will fail again. And then they might bail them out again. John Young asked, what's the latest word on Tesla auto insurance? Will you be required to drive a Tesla vehicle to obtain their coverage? I think Tesla auto insurance is only for Tesla vehicles. I think maybe if you own a Tesla and another vehicle, I'm not sure whether they'll cover the other vehicle. And I think right now it's still only in California, and I think they're working on expanding it. I'm not sure where that stands. Unfortunately, in the United States, we have a very balkanized auto insurance market where every state is different, has different regulations, and it's hard to get in. And I personally don't think that Tesla insurance is that important. So we'll see if it goes anywhere. Marty Party says, I don't see how legacy OEMs can get enough batteries to compete with Tesla and other Chinese auto companies. Any thoughts? I think that's one of many problems that face the legacy car makers. I think getting enough batteries is one of the problems, but there's so many other problems. And, you look at Volkswagen saying they're going to, one of these companies saying they're going to produce 1 million EVs by 2030. It's too late. I mean, that's too late. They are not seriously getting there. Tony Mendoza says brains are made of cholesterol. I believe that cell walls, the strength of your cell walls depends on having more cholesterol. So that's a tricky one. Mark says, Warren, I thought Allset built 20 homes in Texas. I haven't seen it. Mark, send me put a comment with a link in the comments with a link to Allset actually building 20 homes in Texas. I have not seen it. People are saying Allset built 20 homes. Send me a link. Send me pictures. I want to see it. If it's true, great. I hope they succeed. I want them to succeed. Philip says, suggest intermittent fasting is the best way to lose weight. I think there's a lot of ways to lose weight. I do try to eat, like I've been skipping lunch more lately. I didn't skip it today. That's a long story. But I've been skipping lunch sometimes. Trying to narrow the window in which I eat. Don't eat breakfast until 9 a.m. Don't eat after 9 p.m. There's all kinds of things you can do. But fundamentally, I need a Neuralink to stop me from snacking. That's the real problem. Wait, everybody's talking about Allset. Somebody put a link in the comments and we'll talk about it next week. If people really want to talk about Allset, tell me they've actually produced them. Jambay says, did I miss the comments on Cybercabin? There's nothing happening on Cybercabin yet. Lido, my diet is just low carb. So there's nothing happening on Cybercabin yet. I went up to the land today. I was up in Sebring, and my land is near Sebring. And I went to the land, and I'm working. I have a bunch of challenges. I need to get the land cleared. Then I need to probably get permits. Then I need to pour concrete. Then I need to build a building. And there's a little cabin on the land already, like very, very small. I'm kind of thinking maybe I'm just going to go with that for a while. Tricky. And be clear, low carb has worked for me in the past. So if I can stick with low carb, and it's more than just low carb, it's like the value of low carb is it for me, if I do low carb consistently, then I don't feel hunger. So then it's just the listening to your body and not eating more than you need to eat and not snacking. When ideally, if you low carb, you get less cravings for snacks, and that's the challenge. Marathon, Florida is far. I don't go to. I don't. I might be going to Marathon. I have one criminal case left that's active. That I might have to go to Marathon for because that's where the court case is venued. It's a DUI, but see what new questions do we have? Stephen Mark Ryan approves of my diet. Okay. Why does Germany suck so badly? Why hasn't Tesla? I think Germany's okay. I think it's not as good as Texas, but I think they're doing okay. David May says, ask me to speculate. What do I think will be the first two true commercial space enterprises empowered by routine Starship launches? Well, I mean, Starlink will be the first one. Starlink is already happening on Falcon 9, but Starship makes Starlink much, much more viable. Here, really simple. Let's call a Falcon 9 launch $30 million, and they launch 60 Starlinks, so that's $500,000 a satellite for launch cost. Typical Starship launch will be 400 Starlink satellites for cost as low as $2 million or $50,000. $5,000 a satellite. No, $50,000 a satellite. No, $5 a satellite. So $5,000 a satellite. So the launch cost for the Starlink satellites is cut like by 100th, by 100x. So Starlink is the first one that's enabled. I think space tourism maybe. Commercial. I think space tourism. I'm not sure what else. I actually think I don't know if this is commercial, but I think there's a lot more potential for Earth observing satellites when you lower launch costs. That will have a lot more Earth observing satellites that will have value in agriculture. They'll have value in fishing, maybe. I don't know. Value in weather prediction, which is important for commerce. Don't eat until you're really, really hungry. Yeah, it's simple to say. It's not simple to get my body to not run to the cabinet and grab some Cheez-Its late at night. That's the problem. It's not. I'm not always rational. Cybertruck lands on the moon or in Warren's driveway. Which comes first? Warren's driveway comes first. Definitely. What do I think of the $50,000 tiny house Elon is living in? Where are his ex-wives with his children? Elon is not living in a $50,000 tiny house. Elon is living in a small house in Starbase that is not the boxable house that people were talking about. Elon is living in a house that was already there before boxable got there. And Elon travels so much, I don't think he's there that much. How many cars will Tesla produce in 2030? I think it's more than 20 million. I think they hit 18 million in 2026. But there's a lot of different things that come into play. We'll see. Should Tesla use their cameras to find and report fugitives or missing vehicles? That's a great question. I have talked about that the potential for the network of Tesla vehicles and their cameras, that there's an alert that a child went missing, and they query the fleet to see if anybody saw anything near where the child was seen last. And then they see that there was a vehicle, somebody grabbed the kid and threw him in the car, and then they query the fleet to track the car, and they're able to track down the car because of all these Tesla cameras all over the place. I think that's one thing. I think the apartment complexes having security cameras using Tesla Vision, Tesla AI Vision, to understand more about what's happening around the apartment building and identify, okay, we know who that guy is. Oh, we don't know who that guy is. Looking for, maybe being able to detect what patterns of what might be criminal behavior, right? Somebody's walking around, skulking around. I don't know. There's a lot of potential for that. What time is it? Oh, everything okay? Okay. Sorry, my family came home earlier than expected. Let's see. Thoughts on Panasonic making 4680 for other OEMs? I don't think that's going to happen. I think any 4680s Panasonic makes, Tesla will buy, and they will. Other OEMs aren't using 4680. Other car makers are not using 4680. Nobody is building a car for 4680 cells, so there's nobody else to buy them. All right, I'm sorry. Oh, any solar roof? Marty missed my solar roof update. My solar roof, Tesla was too slow, and I need a roof because we live in a hurricane country. So our roof project is mostly done, and we're waiting for the concrete tiles to be put on the concrete tiles to be put on top. We have a new roof. It's just waiting for it to be finished. Let's see. Do I think one of Elon's kids will take over in time for retirement? I don't know. I think that Elon is probably going to leave Tesla in about 5 years and move on to focus on SpaceX and Neuralink. I'm not sure if any of Elon's kids will be interested in the businesses. We'll see. So how does one join Clubhouse? It's Clubhouse. What is it? Joinclubhouse.com. Ben, if you send me an email or if you put a link in the comments, if you ask that in the comments, I'm trying to think what I need from you. I need your phone number. So email me, wredlick@gmail.com. Email me and say, hey, Warren, can you invite me to Clubhouse? I don't think you even need an invite anymore. I think you just download the Clubhouse app from the App Store and or Android, whatever. I think you can just join without an invite anymore. But if you need an invite, email me. You go to the About page on my channel and click. I think you have to click something and you can get my email address. For Starship commercial potential, how about space cleanup? I don't know if space cleanup is a commercial venture, but I definitely think there's value. And Elon said that he thinks that Starship could be used to remove dangerous satellites, derelict satellites from orbit. Nobody has more interest in that than SpaceX, really. So, water. I actually, Mark, I almost always drink only water and tea. Not sugar tea, just tea. My best estimated launch date, I don't know. I'm struggling with that. I want to say early September, mid-September. I'm worried it's going to happen sooner than that. We'll see. Will I do a meetup at South Padre Island when you go for launch? I hope so. I'm hoping to meet a lot of people when I go to I don't know about South Padre. I'll probably be going all over there. South Padre, Port Isabel, Starbase. Thaddeus, low carb worked for me in the past, as in I weighed a lot less for an extended period of time while I stuck to the diet. Not just water weight. So, here we go from Jim Whitehead. My quick search of Alset says they contracted to deliver the first 20 homes, but they have not settled yet. No, Alset did a press release where they said they were going to install 20 solar roofs, but they don't have the houses. It's publicity. I don't know what their game is, but until they build a house, I'm not interested. I am share orbital space stations. I definitely think space tourism has a lot of potential, and space tourism via SpaceX is a lot better than space tourism via Bezos or the other guy. Can't even think of his name. What about the Tesla chain restaurant that Elon's brother is building? It will disrupt the restaurant industry. I'm not aware that Kimmel is building a chain restaurant. Kimmel builds, I think, high-end restaurants that I don't think are chain restaurants. I haven't heard about him building a chain. If you know that Kimmel is building a chain, please email me or put a comment. I'd love to hear that. I haven't heard about him doing a chain. He builds high-end restaurants. He's like a culinary trained chef now, or what has been for a while. Kevin says it's not immediately clear to the average consumer to determine if Beyond Meat is healthier. I don't think that Beyond Meat's sales pitch ultimately is that it's healthier. That may be healthier. I think Beyond Meat's sales pitch really is if they can scale production and get the cost down to be cost competitive with regular meat, or even less expensive than meat, then ultimately people will buy it for that reason. I believe it is lower cholesterol. I think there may be some other health advantages. You're not going to get like E. coli in your Beyond Meat. There's certain times when you buy beef and there's something in it, right? Fecal matter or whatever. Sometimes the butchering process makes a mistake and something gets in there that shouldn't be in there. And that's not going to happen with Beyond Meat. So it's inherently cleaner. Tony Smith says, Meet Kevin thinks Elon may have to U-turn on LiDAR. Any thoughts? I love Kevin. I love Meet Kevin. He's wrong. and not LiDAR. Maybe he means radar. No. Everything, Tesla Vision is going great. There's no need for radar. There's no need for LiDAR. It's going great. When do I think we'll see the first intercity Hyperloop? Probably 10 years, maybe 5. Hard to say. It's happening so fast. I think that we're going to see, I mean, this is the thing, like, if a bunch of people said, hey, Warren, we're ready now, we really want to do the Boring Company Fund, then I would, take another shot at it. But I really just have not seen the interest in Boring Company that I think there should be. Boring Company's a 100-bagger. It's going to go, the value of that company is going to go up 100x if people don't see it. You can tell people, but they can't see it. They can't see it. To me, Boring Company is a better investment than Tesla if we could get the money together, but I don't think we can. Dave Rainbow, this is a good question, Dave. There was a rumor that Tesla's going to use BYD blade batteries. I think that rumor is false. The BYD is a company in China that makes EVs and a lot of other things, and they make batteries, and they have this blade battery that sounds like a structural battery, but it's not consistent with the structural pack that Tesla has talked about, and Tesla already gets a lot of cells from CATL, and BYD uses its batteries for its own vehicle, so I just think that's sort of an out there question. Mitchell says, did you notice how tired and how much pain Elon was in on Tim's interview? He needs rest. I did think he looked a little tired. He mentioned that he was in pain. I didn't think he looked like he was in pain. I think he's a guy who just runs nonstop and he doesn't know how to stop, and I don't think he can rest. I don't think his brain will let him rest. Will businesses buy Robotaxi for delivery vehicles? I think so. I think that's a really smart use for Robotaxi, is for a pizza delivery place to buy a vehicle that will deliver all its pizzas. I'm not sure that's the perfect use case, because the Robotaxi continues to have value when you're not delivering food, right? So maybe you run it as a passenger Robotaxi during the day, and then you convert it to pizza usage at night. I think that's tricky, but it does make a lot of sense, yes. Anything recent on where Cato Road batteries are going? I think Cato Road batteries will be going to wherever Model Y is ready first. Do I think superchargers will eventually get to the millions of individual superchargers worldwide? I don't think we're going to see millions of superchargers. Superchargers are not as necessary. Well, in a robo-taxi world, you might need them more. When most people own their own vehicles and they charge at home most of the time, then superchargers are a lot less necessary than in a robo-taxi world where you may need more superchargers. So I'm not sure about that. Mitchell says Earth-to-Earth Starship isn't too practical, likely won't happen for passengers. I think it can work. I have a video where I talk about, at least one video. If you search my channel for Starship, I think I have at least one video where I talk about how Earth-to-Earth will work. The key is that you have to have like one or two star bases on, let's say, the west coast of the United States, the east coast of Asia. And then that way you're able to have enough volume of launches going from Los Angeles, let's say the California starbase to the China starbase. And then from the starbase, you have hyperloops or VTOLs maybe or whatever to get people from the starbase to their ultimate destination. And the starbases are actually in the oceans off the coast or something like that. They're not in the city, but they're near a bunch of cities. And that would make sense. I don't think it makes sense to have a starbase for one city. It has to be that a starbase serves a bunch of cities. Let's see. With cheaper prices for vehicles, will there be more people who poorly maintain the battery, leading to more problems, i.e. cell swelling and fires? No, the battery management system takes care of the battery, not the people. People don't take care of their batteries. The battery management system takes care of the battery. There's no fire issue. Mitchell says, Warren, it takes over 3 hours just to put the 100 passengers in spacesuits. That's why they won't wear spacesuits, Mitchell. Starship Earth to Earth, you will not have to wear a spacesuit. They're not going to have to wear spacesuits. That's not going to make sense. Let's see. I actually think that even Starship Earth to Earth makes a lot less sense if you do boring bearing. Search my channel for BERING, bearing. We're going to have we're going to do boring tunnels through the Bering Strait and connect the Europe-Asia supercontinent with North America, South America supercontinent, and everybody will be able to travel by Hyperloop at 1,000 miles an hour. and get from one continent to the other fast enough that the advantage of Starship Earth to Earth won't be that big. Partial vacuum held for hundreds of miles in a car-sized tube. That will take some new materials, new engineering. I don't think so, David. I think that that the tunnel itself is naturally airtight. So I think Elon said it's airtight to like 3 or 4 atmospheres. So getting it to a vacuum will not be that hard. It's not the materials. Getting the air out will require some work, but that's just air pumps, I think. Philip says, I'm surprised that Tesla isn't getting into drones. Do you think they should? No, I think that drones, Elon goes into industries that are ripe for being shaken up, that are stayed and haven't innovated for a while. Drones have been very innovative for a long time, so I don't think that's there. Let's see. Tesla long risk for being broken up under antitrust nonsense. I definitely think antitrust is one of the biggest threats to Tesla. Government in general, politics in general is the biggest threat. Absolutely. Do I think there will be plaid long-range version of the Tesla compact car? No. I think, well, maybe a long-range version, but I think that the compact car will be using lithium iron phosphate cells, so that goes against a high-performance car, and it goes against a long. I think the vehicle, the 2023 vehicle, is designed for robo-taxi use, which is not high-performance use. I think there are versions, there are use cases that make sense for a long-distance robo-taxi, and so maybe there will be versions of the car that have nickel-based cells for longer range. MC says, not sure if already mentioned, but is the Cybertruck delay related to 4680 delay? I don't think there is a 4680 delay. I think 4680 is not delayed. I don't know why people think it's delayed. I mean, I'm listening to Drew Baglino on the investor calls. 4680 is going just fine. There's no problem with 4680. 4680 is going great. There's this one problem with the rollers, and they need to do something to make that work, and that's slowing down the lines. They're already producing good batteries. It's just not happening fast enough. And they're having this one particular problem they need to fix. And then there will be another. It's like you have 1,000 things that can go wrong. You have 1,000 things in your process, and the slowest one slows you up, and you got to get that one faster. And then you figure out what the next thing is that's slowing you down. So Warren needs a space shirt. I have a space shirt. It's the Starship shirt I showed earlier. Let's see. Tesla could have bought Boston Robotics. I think Hyundai already owned it. I don't think Tesla needs to buy it. We're going to find out a lot more about that on AI Day. All right, let's see. So we've gone an hour and 45 minutes, and this is a later than usual live stream. And I am tired, and I don't see any new questions. Let me just look really quick. Why aren't the major hotel chains like Sheraton, etc., investing with billionaire rocketeers and startups to build an orbital space hotel? I think the answer to that, Damien, is that the major hotel chains don't necessarily have as much money as you think. And I don't know that they're really capable of handling that kind of mission. I think that would be hard for major hotel chains. I just don't think they have as much money as you think. Elon has a lot more money than any hotel chain. Will Kimball's grow trailers be put on Mars ahead of the colonists? So for people who don't know, Kimmel Musk has a startup called Square Roots, which uses shipping containers to grow food inside the shipping container. And they're able to maintain a perfectly consistent environment, and they generate light. They use electricity to generate light inside the containers, and they're able to mimic the growing cycle of the best year of that basil was grown in this particular location or whatever. And I do think Kimball's method of growing food could be very, very good for Mars for a lot of reasons. So I am excited about that. I do think that makes a lot of sense, what Kimball's doing there. Let's see. Assuming Cybertruck is V2G or V2 I talked to somebody highly placed at Tesla. I didn't bring it up. I was in a conversation with one of the top people at Tesla, and it sounds like vehicle to grid has some promise, but it's difficult to do in America because of how the charging is set up, or the home electronics is electricity is set up or something, or the way the vehicles are set up. But he said that if they go to inductive charging, which means there'd be like you'd charge the vehicle from underneath, there'd be some sort of thing underneath the vehicle that would do the charging. that he said that would work for vehicle to grid. That would make vehicle to grid or vehicle to house more viable. So we'll see. All right. What is the maximum range Model 3 or Y will get if you can guess? I think a 4680 Model Y with structural pack and front and rear castings could get to 500 miles of range. So, all right. Well, I'm tired. I've had a very long day. I drove 6 hours plus in the car, more than 6 hours today. So I am tired, and I want to thank everyone for watching, and I apologize for being late. Next week should be back at the normal time. So thanks everyone for watching. Thank you to the moderators. Thank you to the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden and all my Patreon supporters for helping the channel grow. Check out the t-shirts at elonbits.com. There should be a link at the top of the chat to the stainless steel water bottle at elonbits.com. And I'm done. Thanks everyone for watching.